list. See what you can save. This is a very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the
シャワー浴びてきた。シャワー浴びてエクササイズもした。サウナ入ったの？スチーム。スチーム入ったの？
シャワーだけで。
シャワーだけは、スチーム治ってると思うけどね。どうだった？会ってみんなと。
別に。
みんな覚えてる？
覚えてるよ。
いい汗流した。
ペルーの先生が。キキって言うからさ、みんな振り向いてるよ。
キキって言ってんのみんな。
Of technology. They were aware that at one point they had to distribute written copies of the Bible. Then Gutenberg came. And now people as radical as Benjamin Franklin could print their own books. That's why they went back and redid the First Amendment to say, unless you sell more than 500 books, in which case the government is going to need to look over your shoulder. Phenomenal. One of the most scary aspects of a Republican democracy, Republican form of democracy, is the mixing of arrogance and ignorance. That is a lethal combination. Oh, and then there's this. have been accused of being a conspiracy theorist for just about everything. But this one really drove people nuts. When I said, you understand, of course, that the insane obsession with forcing everybody to buy an electric car has nothing to do with the cars being electric. They're quite aware of the fact that they're going to force people to buy electric cars and then to come along and say, oh goodness, we don't have enough electricity. Well, let's go back to oil and let's go back to natural gas. They know that. They're just turning over inventory. But there's something else. You know why states like California want to ban people or ban the selling of cars that aren't electric? It's because all new cars are going to be government controlled. You hear the phrase self-driving car? It's the tech propels it, but who makes the rules of where it goes, and more importantly, when it goes? The government. So it's not just speech they want to recall. These people don't just want to censor speech, as I've said for, like I said, about 8 years. They intend to get you to drive your car, or to get control over how you drive your car on any given day, at any given second. Representative Thomas Massey wanted to prevent that.
We don't need this federally. We don't need it automated. I think there's privacy concerns. In order for this technology to work, you actually need to know where the car is to know if the driver's doing a good job on that particular road. And so this kill switch amendment would just defund implementation of Section 24220 so that you can know your car's not going to shut you down in the middle of the road. And I thank you, urge consideration of these amendments by our committee, and I yield back.
Yeah, and the phone ringing, that's not us. That's in the sound clip. He's talking about the fact that the government has demanded kill switches in all new cars, so they can just turn them off. Oh, it's to prevent bad driving and drunk driving. That's what it's for. Well, and if you're speeding a lot. Well, also, if you're taking corners a little too quickly, and also if you haven't paid a parking ticket, then. Plus, if you're not really being responsible with when you drive, because there's a lot of people trying to get to where you're going, we might not be able to let you start your car right now, but just for those reasons, well, I mean, it might be that you've said some bad things. As determined by Yoel Roth. And so we just can't let you drive. Sorry about that. But there's buses and trains and such. The human desire for power over others, man, it's a big sin problem. And God's not surprised. I find that a fascinating story, but it's not the top one. The top one is still the good news. That even Yoel Roth can repent. On this program, we thank the Lord for placing supposedly wise on tall towers of shaking sand with our feature called the Tower of Babbling.
You know about the biblical truth of the Tower of Babel. A Disciple's View presents.
And I hope that, I think that Prime Minister she has some difficulties right now.
The Tower of Babbling.
This racist woman is Letitia James, who ran to be AG of New York with one campaign promise: to find a way to go after President Trump. Listen to her babble against skin color.
And so we've got to stand up to the federal government. We've got to stand up to bullies. We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. And we will not go away silently. We will not be silent in the face of this oppression.
I could say it this way. I could say, gosh, if we just get the blacks out of Chicago, people stop shooting each other. You want your city back, get rid of the blacks. And it's filth. It's beyond babbling. It's filth. These are people created by God, loved by God. Just as are white people. And to the white woman who is in a state of rhapsody, standing next to Letitia James, she says that, do you understand, madam, that the phrase too male, too pale can also be too financial fraud. Maybe we should look into that. That's the first of 3 stories in our Tower of Babbling segment. Maybe this guy, who's surrounded by his full bookcases, can do a better job of explaining our political reality.
The cult is white America. Right? Trump is a representation of that culture. And so we have been indoctrinated. That this is why we're trying to change our education system, and it's also why we can't, because to fight against indoctrination is to fight the indoctrinated. Right? To break out of a cult is to fight the cult members. And the cult is whiteness. That's the cult. That's the indoctrination. That is the stylized information from the outside that can never be trusted. The reality of the racial hierarchy in this country. That is the cult. And so Trumpism are people that want to stay in the cult. And the anti-racists and the liberals are the ones that have broken out of the cult, but the cult is still our dominant culture. It still controls the education system, politics, economics, all of this stuff.
Yes, Trumpism clearly controls education. It's fascinating that man cannot provide a definition of whiteness, and yet that's the cult. Is it possible that God's using the obvious hatred of the left, their hatred, as a clear affront to his command to love our neighbor? Is he using it as a way to rescue black Americans from the party of hatred?
Black voters, 22% of black voters behind Trump, that is not seen in the modern era for a Republican frontrunner, right? I mean, wow. It's startling. I looked at the Democratic response, Kevin Munoz, the spokesman for Biden, and this idea that, we have a year, we can turn things around. I think you have to look at this being a challenge from the very beginning, right? Black voters from the very beginning were saying that we will help you get Joe Biden into office, but, this is not necessarily our preference. This was about democracy and saving democracy. And so here we are a year later. He has not been able to change their impression.
Well, it could be this. Maybe they've become white. I mean, it is a disease. Maybe they've caught it. Or maybe they're looking at their cities, or what their kids are being taught, or what was done under cover of COVID, or funding 2 sides of the war between Israel, Iran, and Hamas. 3 sides. Oh, wait, no, black people wouldn't do that. It's just about what? Black issues, whatever that means. And that's a wrap for today's Tower Babbling.
That was the Tower of Babbling.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. On a disciple's view.
Thank you, Team AFR. Hey, to wrap the show today, just a kind of a personal statement, an observation. And I don't want to take credit for this. Obviously, it would be God's credit in the first place, but I also am not really sure that this is why this happened. But I was so thrilled the other night when my wife had made my daughter some food. My daughter's a vegan, and that's difficult to be a vegan. And my wife really worked hard on a meal for her, specifically for her in this case. And she's been working incredibly hard in college. We're very, very proud of what the Lord is doing with her and thankful. And my daughter thanked my wife in such a beautiful way. I was just moved. Mom, thank you. You worked so hard to make such a beautiful meal. This really looks delicious. I want to take a picture of it. I loved hearing that. Now, thank you, Mom. We go out to dinner, she'll say, thank you for paying for dinner, Dad. Thank you for taking us. But that form of thanks, expressive, in other words, manifesting gratitude. Man, that's powerful. To manifest gratitude. And here's the part, I'm not sure if this had anything to do with this, but for years, I've not been great at helping my wife feel needed. She said this to me many, many times. You are a self-contained unit. You do so much on your own. I often don't feel needed. One day, she was prep cooking for me. I eat the same foods about 5 times a day because of what I do in the gym. I said to her, you know what? I feel really loved when you cook that for me. Really, really loved. And my wife said, wow. I've always wanted to hear that. and she now enjoys doing it more. I also make a habit of when we leave restaurants, when it's possible, without being a bother, to overtly thank the kitchen staff, the cooks, particularly at my daughter's favorite vegan restaurant. I always tell them, you guys are geniuses. And they are. Our kids are watching us, even as they're older kids, even as they're legal adults. And by the way, who are we watching? Shouldn't we be watching our Father in heaven for the modeling we need, no matter our age? Let's do that. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. God values free speech, and He loves you. I'm Todd Herman. This is the Disciples' View.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG, Greenville, Dallas.
Was a man that was full of life.
Bert Harper of Exploring the Word.
He loved the Word of God, and it came across in the classroom. Dr. Travis put in my heart a desire to know God through His Word. And that's what we're trying to do on Exploring the Word.
Exploring the Word, weekday afternoons at 3 Central on American Family Radio. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
Several students testified that as conservatives or Jews, they do not feel like their rights are respected. Jessica Rosenthal has more.
Jasmine Jordan cried as she told the House Judiciary Committee about her time organizing some conservative events at the University of Iowa.
Some individuals even expressed that I made them uncomfortable and feared that I might commit a hate crime against them, simply because I'm black and hold conservative principles.
Other witnesses testified about anti-Semitism on their campuses even before October 7th. Kenneth Marcus is the founder of the Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law.
At SUNY New Paltz, we had 2 clients who were thrown out of a sexual assault survivors group because Zionism was an important part of their identity.
The hearing was interrupted multiple times by pro-Palestinian protesters.
House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan.
Quote, safe spaces and free speech zones aim to protect students from violence. One would think Jewish students would have somewhere to turn as violent pro-Hamas students take to their demonstrations and have harmed students on college campuses. That's not the case, as we will see in today's hearing.
The special counsel in the Hunter Biden probe, David Weiss, answered questions from the House Judiciary Committee behind closed doors. David Spunt has more.
Special Counsel Weiss made history as the first special counsel in the middle of an active investigation to answer questions before Congress, not to mention an investigation involving the sitting president's son. Now, Weiss came before Congress to talk about what he calls a misunderstanding about his authority, not the specifics of the actual probe. On this network in June, IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley said that Weiss complained that he was denied special counsel status and basically could not charge Hunter Biden in either Washington, D.C. or California, all because of politics. Weiss refuted that yesterday, telling members of Congress, quote, "It is not what I said, nor is it what I believed," end quote.
Republicans held strong in the Mississippi governor's race, though the GOP lost many other close races. Jonathan Seri has more from Atlanta.
Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves has won re-election. Mississippi was one of the few bright spots for Republicans in Tuesday's elections. Kentucky's Democratic Governor Andy Beshear won re-election. Democrats won full control of Virginia's legislature, and Ohio voters approved a constitutional amendment to protect abortion rights. In Atlanta, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
Colorado is sending mixed messages to citizens over the abortion pill reversal process. Charlie Butch reports.
The procedure for a woman who has taken the first of 2 abortion pills is about 60% effective in keeping the preborn baby alive. But 3 Colorado medical boards have declared it is not an acceptable medical practice. That's in spite of over 4,500 babies saved. Will Duffy of Colorado Right to Life tells AFN what the board's declaration means. A federal judge in October ruled the state cannot enforce the law that bars the practice. No word yet on a possible appeal.
But we're always going to continue to fight at any level that we can to save as many babies as we can, whether that's through legislative efforts, through crisis pregnancy centers, or even just standing outside the abortion facility encouraging women that they still have time to change their mind.
Duffy says Colorado is competing with states such as California to be the most liberal, or deadly, abortion state in the country. I'm Charlie Butts.
Stocks are slipping on Wall Street. The S&P 500 fell 0.3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 120 points, and the Nasdaq Composite was down 0.4%. Crude oil prices continued to slump further, and the 10-year Treasury yield was edging lower. American Family News is online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. How much did you?
What does the American Family Association stand for? AFA believes that all men and women, whether in private or public, should be